Hello, class. My name is Mickey Lorkowski, and I'm the instructor for this introductory philosophy course. I wanted to take this time to introduce the course and kind of put you on the right path to make sure you succeed in the class. We're going to do that by talking a little bit about expectations, a little bit about resources, and then a little bit about the class itself and what my involvement in the class will be. So, first of all, notice this is a 10-week fully online course. And right away, that tells you two things. One, 10 weeks means time and a half. So in a normal course, there's the college rule of threes. 12 credit hours is not a full-time job anywhere in the world, but it's a full-time student. Why? Because college rule of threes, it is expected for every 1 hour of credit hours in class, you put in 3 hours outside of class. And so that means for a normal course, in a normal semester, it's expected you put in about 12 hours a week on average. Now, of course, that'll be a little less on the easier weeks and a little more when there's exams or projects due. So if we apply the college rule of threes to a course that's going time and a half, then you should expect that this course takes up to 18 hours of your time on average. That's probably a little bit of an overstatement because this is an introductory course and then you could probably get away with significantly less. But the point is, because you don't have that hour and 15-minute online component or in-person component twice a week, it is expected that you're doing a little more on the course website. So you shouldn't be surprised if this course takes 12, 15 hours of your week. On average. And that's thing one. Thing two, the fact that it is fully online means that there is a selection and a choice here to, in a sense, work at your own pace, which means there's more of an onus on you to do a couple of things like, first of all, read all the instructions carefully. If you're not coming to class all the time, I'm not there to remind you of things like deadlines coming up. And the pace you should be going and what you should be posting. I do tell you all of that. It's all listed in the course. But just be advised that you're working a little more independently in a fully remote course. If you don't like either of those two things, happy to have you in the in-person class. Love that. Take a 15-week semester. Take some philosophy in a normal lecture environment. We'll have lots of fun. Just be aware of what you're in for. And I'm not trying to scare anybody. That's just what the course is. That's what it's set up as. A little more intensive and a little more self-study. So be advised on that. Having said that, let's talk about a little more of my involvement in the course because I am still the instructor. So you can expect interactions with me in various ways. And I want to emphasize what those are now. One, this course is populated with lots of short 20 to 25-minute lectures, and they are, in a sense, condensed lectures. So they're available on YouTube because YouTube has a wonderful closed captioning system, so always make sure you're at a place where you can access the course videos. But those, in a sense, replace hour and 15-minute in-class lectures. So you might expect them to be a little bit condensed and obviously less direct interaction. But those are how I present the content in the course and to help guide you through the readings. That's one of the chief ways. But second of all, we're going to use the discussion boards a lot in this course. And there's a grade component that is involved in the discussion boards. But there's also your chance to ask me clarification questions and things like that. So another one of my involvements in the course is I will always be answering questions posted to me in discussion boards, and you can expect pretty fast turnaround in that, assuming the technology is working correctly, knock on wood. But if I see a common misunderstandings or errors coming up in the discussion boards where I don't usually involve myself, I'll probably jump in to fix things. And so, first of all, be aware that that's there as kind of your safety net. But also, whenever I post stuff on discussion boards, make sure you're reading it. Because if I'm doing things like correcting common misunderstandings, you want to make sure that those misunderstandings are corrected before The exam starts. So those are some ways I interact. The third way, and don't forget this, is comments on grading, especially on exams and written assignments. I put a lot into the grading comments section, so make very sure you understand how to access those comments on Canvas and make sure you are taking them into account before you submit your next assignment. And lastly, well, second to lastly, there's course announcements. Course announcements, I don't do a lot of those. I try very hard to respect your inbox, but you can usually expect at least one kind of setting up the unit, or if there's a course policy change, say, what does that mean? Well, say I throw a question out on the exam. I get that documented and in writing on course announcements in case something happens to me. Knock on wood again, that whoever takes over the course can make sure it's right. But in general, if I do post an announcement, it's not fluff. It deserves careful attention. And so make sure that you are watching those. Lastly, the other way I'm interacting is office hours. As I already mentioned, self-assessment in this course. You have to know if you're struggling. You have to know if you have a good grasp or not. So how are you, if you are struggling, don't just keep struggling. Let's do something about it. So if you're not that far into college yet, let me tell you what office hours are for. There's the level your preparation does get you. There's the level your preparation should get you. If those two don't match, office hours. Office hours are your time, not mine. And I will work with any student who needs the help. No problem with that at all there. Never be shy about making an appointment. The one thing I do ask is, by an astonishing lack of coincidence, office hours are the first thing on the syllabus. It tells you how to set up an appointment. Roughly speaking, if you send me one email with 5 things on it, I just respond back with the day and time of your appointment. It will be virtual, since this is a virtual class. But if we need to write things out, I have document cameras and stuff. Everything's ready to go. So yeah, don't hesitate if you need office hours. And so those are kind of some of the interactions you can expect from me, even though the course is pretty heavily front-loaded with the material. Let's talk, secondly, a little bit about some of the grades and how that unfurls. This is all in the syllabus, first of all. So again, online course, make sure you read everything very carefully. Watching videos is never a replacement for doing the readings, whether it's an assigned reading or instructions. But it helps sometimes to just talk these things through in different ways. There are, roughly speaking, 3 kinds of grade for the course. In order of easiest to explain, first thing is exams. There's an exam for every unit. All the exams are targeted towards showing understanding rather than memorization. First of all, that's how philosophy rolls anyway. But second of all these exams are going to be taken when you have your notes in front of you, when you have the internet available, etc. And so it would be pretty silly for me to ask you to try to memorize things that you could just look up. And also it's kind of a waste of my time and your time. But instead, you'll still get multiple choice questions, not all multiple choice questions, but about half the exam, a little less than half, will be multiple choice that you have to understand in order to answer them. Second of all, there will be 2 explanatory short essays on each exam. Explain X's argument for Y, or explain some core concept or key objection. And there's a document in one of the modules we'll talk about that talks about succeeding in the course, and that has a whole page of succeeding on the exam, so you want to make sure to look at that. It talks some about how to best approach some of these essay questions. And then the last short answer question is reasoned opinion. Of course, I never grade you on what your opinion is, but you still have to have one. Instead, I grade on how you defend it. Are you engaging class materials in order to show that the course has moved your thinking forward on this topic? And Yes, there's what I just said. Yes, there's a succeeding in the exam section. Watch much closer time though. As we get close to exam one, I will post an announcement exclusively about exams and how you should approach them. But the reason I mention it now is you need to make very sure as you're going through the course that while you're engaging the material, doing the readings, watching the lectures, posting your discussion boards, that you're trying to understand and not just memorize. And so you can't cram understanding, and so make sure you're doing it as you go along. And by the way, these exams are timed, so you still should be studying. You still should be putting forth proper effort before diving into the exam. Again, more on the exam nuts and bolts later. But be advised, you're not just going to be able to sit there and then watch 5 YouTube videos before you answer a question. So you're tested to make sure you're doing the study and preparation you should be, in part by having a timed exam. So that's grade 1. So again, there's 1 exam for every unit of the format I just described, 15 multiple choice at 3 points apiece, 1 20-point explanatory essay, 1 15-point explanatory essay. The only difference between those two is how in-depth the answer needs to be. Roughly speaking, the bigger one's a harder question to answer. And then 1 reasoned opinion for 20 points. The final exam will have an additional section, more on that later. Second assignment should be kind of fun, like college fun, but it should be a little bit fun. You are going to use some of the stuff you're preparing for in this philosophy course to do a 3-part written assignment. Not an essay, not a thesis paper, not an argumentative paper, but instead its goal is going to try to show you how some of the things we use in the course may be used to resolve some sort of controversy that's real life. So, and this is going to be divided into 3 parts. First of all, there's an entire explanatory video on it, on what you should be doing in each part and what you shouldn't be. There's also an extensive written instruction. But just for now, it's one of those walk before you could run things. Part 1 should be really easy, and then you start getting a little more involved, and its goal is to just slowly ease you into, well, how does some of this stuff in the course apply to real life? So watch for those descriptions. But the one I wanted to really emphasize now is there is a weekly participation grade, and that is fulfilled exclusively through the discussion boards. So what's going on there? There's a lot of discussion boards. You don't have to post on all of them. We'll talk a little more about that when I get into how the course is laid out. But in general, the discussion board grades are warming you up for some of the stuff I talked about for the exam. So their goal is to show that you're kind of thinking a little more deeply about these things. So what does get credit? What you think and why. So you can either be critical or in the sense of thinking clearly about these things, not necessarily of criticizing. So does this view seem right? Why or why not? Is this an argument a good one? Why or why not? Is this match your intuitions in your experience? Why or why not? Emphasis on the why or why not. Or you could also do applications. Well, this philosopher's view applies to my real life in this way. And it's graded on a general depth. And the syllabus specifically says what the depths need to be. And that's expected depth. If you give me a paragraph of biographical information about Plato before telling me what you think, fine, but just be aware that the biographical paragraph doesn't count towards anything. Very similarly, if you're responding to classmates, well, saying, great post, good, I love the fact that you're doing a helpful and supportive tone, but again, the goal is a certain level of depth and understanding. And so there's more on the actual assignments and expected depths in the syllabus, but what I wanted to emphasize here is what you can do to maximize your grade and what you should be doing generally. First of all, you could start an initial thread, and a lot of what I said is like that, where you take some aspect of the material and tell me what you think and why, and just post it in one of the discussion boards for that week. Or you could also respond to a few classmates. So roughly speaking, the initial threads end up being about twice as long as the classmate responses, so we would expect more classmate responses to achieve full credit. Again, outlines for depth are in the syllabus. But what I wanted to draw your attention to here was a couple things. One, it is a weekly grade. I take every discussion board you can post on in that week, and I add all your participation together. So if you participate a little bit in this discussion, a little bit of this discussion, a little bit of that discussion, add them all together. Two, though, if you do one substantive post in one of the discussion boards, that should be enough for full credit as well. And one of the things I want to mention is you do not need to post in every discussion board, just the ones you want to. Having said that, you should still monitor the other discussion boards, even if you're not posting there, for understanding purposes. So if you want to understand in more depth what's going on in the Euthyphro dilemma, even if you don't want to write on it, you definitely want to read through the discussion post. You want to check to make sure, especially if I'm throwing in things about misunderstandings or important background information about that, you should know. So you should still be, as part of your job as a student, monitoring all the discussion boards, even if you're not posting in them. Lastly, the discussion post, the participation grade fulfilled through the discussion post should be the easiest grade to fulfill, because I'm going to tell you something about logistics. One, as per the syllabus. I say that a lot because everything's in the syllabus. But one, as per the syllabus, the weekends, Sunday at 11:59 p.m. So that's when grading stops. Anything posted after that date, fine, great, wonderful. You can do that for your own benefit, but it doesn't actually contribute towards the participation grade anymore. Two, though, and here's the sweet spot you want to pay attention to. I will post everybody's up-to-the-minute participation grade on Saturday. So what does that mean? It means if you keep track of your grades, you could always get full credit if you want. A few exceptions we'll talk about in a minute. But let's say you post some stuff on week one. You're not sure if you posted enough. What do? You wait till I post grades Saturday before 3 o'clock. You log on to your grades. If it says, say, 7 out of 10, well, that's a C-. If you want better than a C-, you still have until 11:59 Sunday night to, say, respond to and engage one more peer of your peers' posts in order to get those extra points. Now, I only grade once a week, though, so even if you post stuff Sunday morning to add towards week one, you won't see that changed until I post week 2, so please no panic emails about that. But notice this is supposed to be your softball and your warm-up. If you keep track of the participation, you should be able to get full credit. But also, you are practicing for the exam, that reasoned opinion question on the exam, and you're helping develop your own thoughts on it. And so students are sometimes a little surprised or don't think right. Professors don't like grading. We never love grading. If there is an assignment that is graded, it's because it's helping your learning in some way. So I don't grade discussion boards because I love spending my Saturdays grading. It's because these help a lot. So make sure you are engaging them properly. Also, you're not completely at sea here. Just about every lecture video in the course, I will suggest one or more potential what you should be posting in the discussion boards. Even if you're not actually following my discussions and posting something there, you want to keep track of them, because those are the kind of things that would be fair game for the exam. So if I say, what do you might want to post on what's the most compelling of the knowledge problems in the Euthyphro dilemma. Well, even if you don't write about that, that tells you those are the kind of things that, fully appreciating and understanding the lecture, you should be able to answer. So definitely keep track of those questions. All right, that's the participation grade in a nutshell. It's might be a little, you might feel a little at sea when the course starts, but it's really easy to catch on. Two things that's going to get you a goose egg, a 0 for the participation, though, that you can't recover from for that week. One, plagiarism. So it's fine if you use external sources. There's a lot of good sources out there. We're looking at a lot of classical theories. Just make sure you cite it as per the syllabus policy. So if you don't quite understand the Euthyphro dilemma, I'm just using that as an example throughout, and you want to say log on to the Internet Encyclopedia of Philosophy, wonderful resource, accessible articles, but all peer-reviewed, and you look there and you get some ideas, well, if you cite that, you've done research. If you don't cite that, you've done plagiarism. The former is awesome, the latter is awful. So see the syllabus for my course plagiarism policy. But if you try to intentionally present someone else's work as your own, I'm going to come down on you like a ton of bricks. The second way you can get a 0 for the week is violating netiquette. All discussions must be tactful and must follow the web etiquette policies of the course. If you are posting very rude things or very offensive things, they will be removed for the week, and you will have a 0 there instead. So just be careful there. Remember, these are these are your colleagues. These are your peers. So think in terms of what would I say to this person if I was sitting next to them in a classroom with the professor there is a really good way to make sure you're not saying anything you shouldn't be. But also, even that might not be enough, because also remember this is online and you lose things like tone of voice. And so always kind of pay attention to whether something could be interpreted wrongly. And if you do those things, I'm not trying to scare you, because I think I've had very few problems with this. I love teaching at Lorain County because it has such good students, and they don't try to, these haven't been an issue in the past very much, but just be mindful. Always be mindful to cite. You'll never get in trouble. Always be mindful to not imply something you don't want to, and you'll be fine there too. So that's the discussion board overall. Let me tell you 2 more ways you could that this is going to help your grade rather than hurt it. 1, I do drop the lowest week. So if you have one in the bank, if say you have a really busy week at one point in the semester and you want to take the week off, that's fine. But again, even if you do that, you should still be monitoring the discussion boards, because you will see lots of good stuff from your classmates that's going to help you understand. You'll see good stuff from me that's going to help you understand. So you want to stay on top of that as part of your job in preparing the material, even if you don't write anything. 2, remember I said you only get credit for reasoned opinion. That doesn't mean you can only post reasoned opinion. So it is an advisable policy, especially if you're struggling with some specific part of the material. Write a summary. If before you tell me what you think of the Euthyphro dilemma, you first write a paragraph explaining what you take the Euthyphro dilemma to be, I will look at that. I will check it for accuracy while I'm grading. You won't get any grade for it, but when I'm entering the grading comments, I'll be happy to tell you if anything's wrong. So if you want to really, really, really put like your full-time effort into this job, you could literally write a summary of everything we talk about, and I will always check it for accuracy. I tell students I always care exactly as much about their grade as they do, but that goes both ways. If you care a lot, I'm there to help you. If you don't care at all, well, that's your choice. So, last thing in general, about the discussion boards. The classes that do well are the classes that leverage the discussion board. It's a resource. Use it. Your classmates' questions and my answers to them are a resource. Your classmates' posts are a resource. They're a resource during the review period when you're reviewing for the exam. If you want to go back and read all of those and see these helpful summaries and takes about the interesting issues there, it's a tremendous resource if you use it. So long story short, yes, use it to get the grade, but realize there's a lot more at stake going on there. This should be a very important vehicle to enhancing your understanding. That's why I spent so much time on it. All right. That's the grade stuff. Let me talk about the course layout. It is not that exciting a course layout. I try to make things blunt instead of pretty just to make sure everybody could find them and use them accordingly. One, there is a module at the top called Course Essentials. What's in there? Everything that's not unit specific. And so things like that's where your copy of the syllabus is. That's where your document on Course Essentials is. I'm sorry, Course Essentials. Succeeding in the course document. That's where there's also a little document that's just a quick summary of the schedule, which is pretty much set in stone for the semester. So that's in there. And so the Course Essentials is just everything that's not about material from the course, everything that's about the nuts and bolts. And the one thing I want to really draw your attention to, there's also this Ask Your Instructor forum. So this is a discussion board that is for all the stuff that's not course specific. So if you have a question about exam formats, post it in the Ask Your Instructor. If you have a question about, say, the written assignment, you could post it in the Ask Your Instructor, and on and on. So that's for general questions, not I don't understand the Euthyphro, but I don't understand the written assignment. That's where you go for those. If you're comfortable with it. Of course, you could always email me directly. No problem there. But I would really prefer, if you are willing, if you post it on the Ask Your Instructor forum, then all your classmates get to see my answer too. And so anybody having a similar difficulty or misunderstanding will benefit from it. And along with that, I would recommend everybody in the class subscribe to the Ask Your Instructor forum, just because it doesn't get used very often. If it does, it's usually the kind of thing you want to see the answer to. So that's in the Course Essentials module, which is just all of that supporting documentation. After that, there is one module for each unit. And if you open one of those modules and you see a lot there, don't panic, because there's basically 4 entries for every item. So I went with the not charging students for books approach this semester. So all of the assigned readings are available online or as files. And so you'll one of the items for each thing we read in the course, there will be one that's the actual reading, either a link or a file. The files are either PDF or Word, so always make sure you have those. But then 2, there's another page that's just a link to the instructional video. So the course videos. Again, these are all on YouTube, so make sure you're accessing that. I like using it in YouTube instead of embedding it in Canvas because YouTube's closed captioning system is much better. But let me say this. I very intentionally make those 2 separate items in the module because the lectures cannot and should not be a replacement for the reading. The job of the lectures is to work you through some of the major points and some of the difficult points. The lectures are given such that they assume you have already done the reading to your job. That is read for understanding, not just let your eyes pass over it. So you don't want to skip the reading and just go to the lecture. That's you could probably get away with a passing grade doing that, but it's probably not going to be the grade you want. So those are 2 items for just any one reading has those 2 items. But then there's 2 discussion forums. So every quote-unquote reading or item for the semester has 4 things. That's why those modules look so huge. So let me talk about those 2 discussion boards. There's always one that says questions about the material. There's one that says thoughts about the material. They are as described. So when I say questions about the material, I don't mean thought-provoking questions. I mean I don't quite understand questions. So the questions about the materials forum are the kinds of things that if you were sitting in a classroom and a teacher was giving this lecture, or even while you're doing the reading, and it's the kind of thing you'd raise your hand and ask for a clarification. That's what I want in the questions about the materials. And again, I prefer you ask them there because then all your classmates can benefit from it. And I will give you a couple of participation points for those kind of questions too. But they're just for if you're not understanding. Though that's what that one is for. By contrast, the thoughts about the materials are where you are going to post to fulfill the usual weekly participation grade that I already talked about. That's where you put the here's what I think and why. So you see 2 discussion boards for every reading as well. So that's why when you open it, you see a bajillion items in Unit 1. That's why to not panic. It's we divide those all up just so they're easier to process. And also, say, when you're studying for the exam, you can look different places for different things. So that's largely what's in there, and they go in order. I do want to emphasize, though, we stick with the course schedule unless I post an announcement stating otherwise. So if week 3 is where it says participate in the Youthafro discussions, and you post something in week 4, say a question about the material or thoughts, I'll still look it over. I'll still give you comments on it. I'll still answer questions, but they no longer count towards the week 3. I don't even know if it's week 3, whatever week's participation. And so the schedule that is last page of the syllabus, but is also posted separately in the course essentials, that tells you which discussion boards you need for credit. Second of all, though, reminder, you don't need to post in all of them. You need to have some combination that gets you the sufficient depths, which is roughly 2 paragraphs. So just because there's 6 potential discussion boards in a week, you don't have to post in all 6. You're always welcome to. Always look at everything you'll submit, but just in terms of, making those college level time management choices, just be aware of what's required and what's not. And on and on. So when the exam comes around, again, there'll be a whole announcement about what to look for in the exams, etc. But just for now, the exam will appear as the last item in the module when it opens. So for the Unit 1 exam, you will see the very last item is the module exam. Having said that, you will notice a second thing is that the review sheet is the first item in each unit. That's very deliberate. So first of all, I left it as a Word document. I usually convert these things to PDFs, but a lot of people like to type their responses or type their summaries in the review sheet itself, and I want to certainly give you the opportunity to do that. But more generally, some people just like to do the reading with the review sheet next to them because as you go through, it will give you the main points of each reading, which is a good way to double check yourself and make sure you're understanding. If you can't give a rough outline of what's going on with those main points, that might be a sign that you haven't attended the readings closely enough. So generally, that's what's in the course in terms of modules. So the main takeaways: 1, use the resources in a way that will help you, but 2, realize what is required and what's just you getting assistance and enhancing your understanding. Those might part ways sometimes. So that's what's in the course, and that's what I'm doing. Any questions about any of that, please reach out. Again, if you're comfortable doing so, do the Ask Your Instructor. I'll be happy to answer any nuts and bolts questions. If something's grade specific, please always send that to me in a private email. I can't and won't answer grade things in the Ask Your Instructor forum. But stuff that your classmates would benefit from, great, love it. So that's what's available. I hope you all have a successful course. And you will have a successful course if you follow the guidance and you leverage your resources. You'll do fine. And otherwise, please reach out as needed because I am one of those important resources.